IYCHTH! Welcome back to another episode of Can't Handle the Heat. It's your boy G Swizz, joined by Jokesy. Jokesy, how we doing?
Doing great. How you doing, G Swizz?
Cruising. Micah, how we doing, broski?
Doing good.
Glad to hear it. Well,
Thanks for having me on the pod.
Anytime, Mike. Anytime you want to hop on, just know you can be an honorable guest as well. Anytime you want to hop on.
Mike, I was thinking of you today as I don't know, I thought there was like a couple of the Hawaii guys who added 808 on the end of their Instagram handles recently.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
From Hawaii or not from Hawaii?
Not from Hawaii. Definitely not from
Hawaii.
Oh, no, man.
I saw for sure Max. I thought Jakob or Philip or one of those guys. I don't know. I thought one of them did.
You would hate those guys, because I know how you feel about the Hawaii. Oh my god! They speak pidgin all day, every day. That's all they do, like European pidgin. Yeah, you would literally just. Oh man, I could only imagine.
I actually just talked to Eric, and Eric was like, "Dude, the Hawaii men's volleyball is gotta be one of the most brutal things on the island."
Yeah, no, I can understand that. Now it keeps getting more and more like
it started with local Joe.
It's a well-known thing. It's like among like Hawaii volleyball players from Hawaii that it's just like, oh, here we go.
It doesn't help that they keep winning too, and then it just like increases all the
I don't know, dude.
attention on the team.
We'll see if they keep. Well, they'll keep winning with a schedule like that. I'll say that. Also, I want to give a fat shout out to who's not on this pod, Jake Myers, who talked about BYU being the number one team. They've gone 0-2 versus Penn State, and I told him Penn State's gonna be a good team. You know, I just want to say I told you so.
Penn State is nice, huh?
Yeah, they're nice. They returned everyone. That's why. So they're nice. Okay. There's a lot of other good teams out there, but a lot of teams are getting canceled for COVID. USC's off to a good start, 2-0.
The cancel culture.
Sam Coburn, baby.
Sam Coburn, 2-0 versus Santa Barbara. Stanford with a 5-setter. Was it 19-21 or 18-20 against UCI? They won last night. They're 2-0 or 3-0. I can't.
3-0. They beat Illinois twice, I think.
Whoa. Stanford is?
Go Card,
yeah,
dude.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Luke Turner.
Dude, those are all the guys we play with.
Oh yeah, dude, they're all those boys.
Will Rotman,
Peters. Aiden Peters.
Yeah, Aiden Peters. Is there anyone else?
There has to be.
I don't know, but that's kind of the crew down there.
The boys. I wonder if Shayna went up for any matches.
Yeah, you know what? I'm a Stanford guy now.
I think they can. Yeah.
I'm with the Stanford guys.
Well,
also, they're cool guys, yeah.
Well, the problem with a lot of the men's volleyball right now is a lot of the matches are getting canceled because of COVID. And I know, like Hawaii, they're traveling around. Damn, like they're doing a tour. Damn near, they're going everywhere. But they're going to Texas, so they're going to the right places. But it doesn't matter. So we'll see a lot of games. I hope everyone's season's in good hands. But again, this is not a solo dole up. So we're gonna get the Taylor Averill for the first time. I'm surprised it's our first time getting Taylor on here because he's definitely a free thinker like ourselves here, and he's definitely a prominent figure in the volleyball community.
Taylor's got to be one of the most free thinkers in the volleyball world.
Him and Dustin?
Different. They're very different free thinkers. Dustin's a more philosophically free thinker, and Taylor's more of just like he just thinks differently.
He's just different.
He's just different. But he's got to be one of the biggest characters in the USA gym for sure, no doubt about it. He's definitely up there.
Especially growing his social media presence. Also, I have to give a quick shout out to the merch. I'm repping this one. I have both of your guys' merch. Mike, I have boxes. All the merch that we have still is from the athlete stuff. All of this new stuff I have it sitting here. That's all yours.
Okay.
But I need an address that for sure it will send to.
I gave it to you.
Will it for sure get there?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure. Dude.
Pretty sure.
Dude, that's pretty high chance.
Micah's word
doesn't sound too high chance.
Well, right before we get Taylor on, I want to give a fat shout out to Manscaped here. Cheers to 2022 and resolutions you can actually keep. How about having clean and shiny balls all year round? Our sponsors at Manscaped are here to save your balls this year and make the ball drop into 2022 the cleanest and sexiest ever. Set your first New Year's resolution with good intentions and join the 4 million men worldwide who trusted Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use the code, Joey.
Volleyballs, like always. I saw people commenting some funny stuff on YouTube.
That's pretty funny. Volleyballs, all cap, for 20% off and free worldwide shipping. Without further ado, the Taylor Averill. You can handle the heat. Yeah. You can handle the heat. We are now joined here by ex-Rainbow Warrior, U.S. national team middle, and all-around free thinker, Taylor Averill. Taylor, thank you so much for hopping on the pod, bro.
Yeah, thanks for having me, boys.
Absolutely.
Hey, wait, I got to say something really right off the bat. This is like the first time all of us have talked together, and I got to be honest, it's quite a surprise for me.
Because
it's a surprise, dude.
What's the surprise? That this is the first time
just
we're
that
talking?
This is the first time we're all just like hanging out, you know?
That's true. That is true.
I
agree.
Joe and Gage, both of you guys, like, obviously we haven't built much of a relationship. Joe, we didn't play together. Gage, we didn't play together. But like Micah and I, for example, like, you know, we had times where we were boys, dude. You know, and you guys both went to UH. Like, you guys are good dudes. I'm just surprised. That's all.
No, that's true.
So he's calling us out for not bringing him on the pod.
No, dude. No, fuck. I don't care about the podcast. I'm talking about, you know, just being friends, dude. I'm just surprised. That's all.
That's true. That is true. I feel like there's a lot of connections and a lot of cross paths that could have happened that I guess just didn't happen. Well, first time for everything, I guess.
That's right.
Well, we have a lot of stuff we want to kind of get into. One of the first things that I saw, I remember I was looking on your Instagram a while ago, and we asked this question when we go to club volleyball tournaments. We ask this question when we go anywhere. It's, what's the hardest position in volleyball? And usually the people who, for example, if you're a setter, they're gonna say setter, and outside say outside, and you're a middle, and you embrace debate. So we want to kind of get hot into it because I know Micah and Joe have, and I have my strong takes about what's the hardest position in volleyball. And I'd like to ask you the question and provide details as of why.
Yeah. Well, we can use a simple process of elimination. Mm-hmm. We know what's not the hardest position in volleyball, you know?
That's
obviously.
Ooh.
No, I'm kidding. Libero is obviously not the hardest position. Okay.
That's true.
I mean, neither is opposite. We can just get rid of those two. Give me a break, dude. Opposite's not that hard.
So what do you base
the
it
real
off of?
Instinct, gut instinct.
But like what by hardest? What do you think is like? Do you think it's like physically demanding, mentally demanding, or like what's hardest for you?
Let's actually get rid of positions and let's talk about what's the hardest skill. And to me, the hardest skill is read blocking. And in fact, I think it's the skill that potentially, we won't even call it read blocking. I mean, just reading the game. And I think middle is the one position that's constantly reading the game, like constantly has to read every scenario and take in so much information. Whereas like, okay, setters game planning and strategizing and outsides are, for the most part, just like they can, to some degree, they're reading as well. Like obviously pins are reading as well, but I think reading the game is the hardest skill. It takes the longest to develop. Therefore, the position that reads the most is probably the hardest one, you know?
That's true, but you're okay. So you could. All right, Joe, I'll let you get into it.
No, yeah. Oh, sorry, Gage. You finish it. You're saying.
No. You go. You.
No,
last thing I want to add. Last thing I have to add. It's the position that gets the least amount of credit, and I think has the hardest skill. And so that combined, I think, makes it also a difficult position to play.
Okay. No, that's very bad. And read blocking for sure, I would say, is definitely up there as like a hardest skill. It's a very difficult skill, especially at the levels that like all of us are playing at. Like the setting, everything that goes into it, the speed of the game is so fast in the decision making. The one thing that Micah and I talk about a lot is how the setting position is perceived by coaches and like the outside world and like the reactions that you get. For example, let's just say on a misconnect in the middle, like any type of misconnection is always looked at towards the setter. It's never looked at like as a mistake for anybody else. And also something I was even talking to my coach about this the other day. One thing, like mentally as a setter, and this happens all the time in matches and games and practice. It's like if a setter misconnects or makes a decision and the guy gets blocked, even a solo block or something, setters, I feel like most setters take it like on themselves, like it's their fault for the team getting blocked. And then say the next play is like an ace, then you get out assist the ball, the hitter hits out. Like as a setter, you kind of get viewed upon like, oh, we wouldn't have lost that game if you didn't set this guy in this situation because he got solo blocked. It's like, but me personally, and Mike has said this at the same time, it's like going back and looking at video, you would set the same ball every single time over and over. And I think like more on like the pressure side of things and how the setting position is critiqued makes it, in our eyes, like the most difficult position because you're handling so much and like every single thing is critiqued at such a high level. Like if you lose a game, the first thing I know, at least this season too, our coach, the first thing he does is come look at, all right, offensively, like what happened there? Why didn't we close out the set? Like why didn't we score in these situations? Every decision is critiqued at such a high, with such a like a keen eye that I feel like it makes it super difficult to go out. Where, for example, an outside, he could pass really poorly. He's scoring on those balls. Nobody's going to really kind of question those things. Like you can make up for things in every other position by doing another skill really well. Where at the setting position, if you are making mistakes, as a setter, like it doesn't matter really how you're serving or anything. Like everybody's just going to talk about how you made a wrong decision or how you made a poor set that wasn't whatever. And so I feel like that's kind of going in. Okay.
Because we both think the same thing. So I think that setting is most difficult. And I think people are judging it based on different criteria in a sense where I do think that middle can be the hardest position and like reading would be the hardest job. However, the responsibility is not placed on you where you are going to get blamed if it's a perfect pass and you guess wrong and it's one-on-one. Because people accept that and people are like, yeah, like you jump with the middle on a perfect pass. No one's coming in yelling at you at a timeout like, what are you doing? Or like, why aren't you doing your job? Where it's like, we understand that that's super difficult and that you're going to be wrong a lot. And your eyes can kind of just like not be focused on a middle, even if they're read blocking terribly. It's never the loss or win is not the responsibility of the middle. Whereas like, setting, you have a huge responsibility, and the skill itself might not be as difficult, but the expectation of you to perform that skill every time perfectly is there, and it's like at a higher level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you guys did such a good job, and you know what? You've totally persuaded me. I'm all about setter is the hardest position. It's official.
But seriously though.
No, I mean, yeah, I totally get it. So the question is like, what do you define? What's your definition of hardest position?
Right. That's where I think we need to clarify the question because people have made good points where I'm like, yeah, like, middle would be the hardest if you were to just like break it down of everyone doing their job perfectly. It would be the hardest for a middle to do the job perfectly. But the expectation is not for you to do it perfectly. You get a block touch here, you get a block touch there, and you did a great job. Whereas like setter, it's like you mess up a few sets and it's like, dude, like every ball's got to be good.
I've heard athletes from every position present, even an opposite. Radul Parapunov, previous opposite at University of Hawaii, he's presented a good case for why opposite could be the hardest position, like mentally. And he's like, I could score every single ball, and if it's 22-22 and I get a ball and I hit out, that's all everybody remembers, and that's all I get criticized for.
So let's break it down. So what do you honestly think? I mean, let's break down like what's hard. So skill, mental responsibility, maybe what position requires you to be in the best physical shape. I don't know if that matters or not. Also, you think about something like outside, you have to be really proficient in a handful of different skills.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know. It really depends on how you define. I mean, obviously this is subjective, and yet it's probably not, dude. We just need to collect the right scientific data and ask the right questions to get an objective answer. And that's quite the quest.
So one thing that we like to do, I know with like our content and what stuff we always talk about, is we like to compare our stuff because we want to move like volleyball towards the type of conversations that like and they're having with the NBA, NFL. So I'm thinking like, okay, how do they really look at like what's the hardest position in those types of sports? Like, what are they looking for to debate those in like NBA, NFL?
A lot of it comes like quarterback. Like, yeah, being an offensive lineman is more difficult, but how much of responsibility and decision making are they making? Or like point guard.
Impact
like,
of the game as well.
They're running the offense. They're making a lot of the decision making, and the rest of it, like, you can be physical, but like you still have to make these decision making, and you have a huge amount of responsibility.
Right.
So it seems like Micah, like everything, and I think we both argue more so towards like the responsibility aspect and the like pressure to perform like your given skill, whereas like you can compare like to other positions in other sports, but and Taylor's more looking at like just the individual skills that you need to be able to perform that.
Right.
And I think you can.
I'm just putzing around, you know. I don't really know. I just like, of course, I'm giving my case for the middles. Really, is what's happening. But
no, totally. And I think you look at every other sport too, because I think we always like tied in other sports. I think if you look at every other sport, every position where it requires like a very skilled like skill set that you need for whether it's like offensive linemen or like stuff like that who kind of do the dirty work where everybody understands it's difficult and understands that there's going to be mistakes. Where, for example, at the quarterback position, you make like a dump throw, like you make a bad read and a dump throw, like that's magnified in such a large way, rather than like a missed blocking assignment. Like you can get away with it too. Like people understand with some stuff, and so I think Gage, I don't know if you have any intel on this. I think you're the most like biased, or not biased, but most like neutral. Like both of us are on such like I feel like opposite sides. I don't know if you have a viewpoint on how the best way to judge the most difficult position is.
Well, obviously, I think if we were to judge it on just like physical attributes, I would definitely say the middle blocker is. Here's where it gets dicey. It is the mental game, right? For let's say you take the how do I put this, the mental strain out of it, right? For example, and just look at like mentally thinking you have decision making with setters, and then you have read blocking with middles. The read blocking is a harder position, but you don't have as much room for error when it comes to setting. So that's where I get that because like Micah said, everyone kind of has that.
So here's something that can you lose a game? What can you lose a game with more? If like your middles are missing like blocking assignments more, or if your setter is just making bad decisions and not setting hittable balls?
The question to ask is, how often are setters making mistakes? And let's try our best to like, okay, let's go to like the highest level, right? Let's say setters in Italy or Poland or Germany, whatever, like really high level setters. How often do you think, and maybe both of you guys can touch on this, how often, let's say per set, do you think you've made a mistake? And I don't mean decision making. I mean like a set where they like can't do something with it, or like something as like a bad set. Let's even say like a ball that's too tight. I don't even want to say that because now I think hitters are evolving to be able to handle like so bad sets, let's say. What do you guys think?
Totally. Sorry, there was another thought I had. Mike, if you want to go for this, I just had another thought. But it's a little off topic. You go, Micah, first on this.
To answer Taylor's question?
Yeah. How many times do you think at the highest level?
Probably like once or twice a set.
Yeah, I was gonna say one or two, and it mostly comes in.
If you have a bad set, probably twice.
Yeah.
For the highest level.
Yeah, okay. Exactly. So you're not considering like decision making into like the errors so much, right? Just more so like the quality
really,
of the set.
Skill of setting.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, probably once.
I would say one or two. Yeah. You only get away with that. You're not getting away with much more than that. If you're not able to hit more than that, then those are usually points that you're not winning at the highest levels.
Because what I think is really interesting is you know, you guys talk about it like setters have this like huge mental responsibility, right? And that like if they make a bad decision near the end of a match, and that's what potentially people from the outside point to is like that's why we lost. So you feel like this mental burden. Obviously, you think you have to deal with it more. What I find really interesting is like every player feels the same way about their performance, almost equally, right? So like let's say like the mental strain on an athlete in a position, to me, God, it's pretty equal, other than maybe libero. But even then, I'm sure that there's, because they know that their impact is a little bit different on the court. I'm sure like Gage, to some degree, like you take responsibility over like that one ball you got aced in the seam, or like,
right,
you know, that one ball that like you could have played up and instead you shanked it and went out of bounds or something. Whereas like, I just find it really interesting because I think what I've recognized is that it's amazing how much, like this is a great example is last night we played, who did we play? Last night we played a team. Don't remember who they are, but we played them, and a Polish team. And we lost. We lost in 4. And it was really close game. We should have gone to 5. Honestly, we could have won in 3. One of those games. And TJ took like, after the game, TJ and I were in the car, and he took like a huge responsibility. And like, to me, he wasn't the reason we lost, but he hit the last ball out of bounds. It was like kind of a broken play, and he hit it out of bounds. And it's amazing because also our middles, like I was on the bench. I'm dealing with some like really bad plantar fasciitis right now. It's really terrible. It sucks. So we're like slowly coming back, but I have a chance now to watch the game from the sidelines. And that's even its own amazing compartment we could get into, like seeing the game from the nets right here to like the sidelines to the stands. It's like, dude, perspective is everything. But I noticed, obviously I'm looking at the middles, right? And I noticed like so many opportunities we had to block a ball and missed. And yet like TJ played really well, hits one ball out of bounds, and now he's like gone, you know, mentally just like so destroyed. So is our setter. So is like everyone takes such a huge load of responsibility that like to some degree, I don't think like setter deals with more mental load than like any other player. What do you think about that?
Right. No, I would agree with that. I think everyone, based on your character, is taking a lot of responsibility for losses and feels like their actions could have led to them winning or losing. However, I think there's a different amount of feedback from coaches in that regard. Like when I've played as an outside, I get very little feedback in terms of winning and losing based off my performance as well as my decision making in situations. And then I rarely have seen middles get pulled aside after games and be like, hey, this one you have to do this one you have to do that, this one's kind of on you. And setters, it's maybe like 8 out of 10 games. So I think that there's a pressure from the coaching staff that's different than on setters than other people, but I do think everyone's taking responsibility in their own minds.
Dude, and you know what the real problem is when I'm hearing you talk right now? Middles just don't get enough credit, dude. That's why middles are the baby giraffes. You know, they're wild in the zoo. We just let the zoo animals roam around, and we need to change that. And that's part of what I'm trying to do. You know, trying to educate and make. I want coaches to blame everything on the middles. That's where I want it to go. Right now, the setters take all the load from the coaches. We got to change that, dude. And a part of that is teaching people to respect the middle blocker position, dude. And that's my mission.
So let's change it. Let's change it, Gage.
It's like the tight ends of volleyball.
So how do you? Sorry, Joe. Sorry.
I'm just saying they want respect.
So how would you say like you impact the game as much though? You know what I'm saying? Like where does obviously setters touching the ball every single play? Where
the other obvious one is 3 rotations. Middles are in 3 rotations. Like that's a huge argument always.
That's not true. Middles are in 6 rotations. There's a middle in every rotation.
One middle. Oh, that's a good point.
But we're talking about positions. We're not talking about individuals, boys. Okay.
Okay, but you can't lump 2 middles into one though. That doesn't count though. Like if you're
talking about the position, what are you talking about?
So right, but okay, well that could be another argument for setters.
That makes it more difficult. Is that one great middle can't just play all 6 rotations. He has to share that responsibility with some other guy.
Exactly. That's why it's not. That's why I feel it's like it's.
That's why it's even harder.
Maybe when you
You
get
get
in
to be the guy. You get to be the guy not making the mistake or making a mistake. I gotta watch the other guy make the mistake or not make the mistake, dude. Do you know how
you can
hard
be the
that
most
is?
frustrating. You can say the most frustrating position, but I don't think it makes it the hardest position.
But then you do take less responsibility for the overall.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
No, dude.
you
your
guys,
individual
we're talking
impact.
about position. Middle position takes the responsibility equally.
But you can't say that for the outside,
In this breakdown, we're talking about positions. So the middle position, I'm not talking about just one individual. I'm talking about the two individuals that make up the middle position in one game.
But
If one middle's blocking every ball and scoring every ball and the other's not, the coach doesn't go, all right, all the middle. He goes, no, this guy's not scoring, so he's getting pulled.
Yeah. That's very true. He's not like okay, middles. He's like, hey, Taylor, you gotta do this or that.
But look at you got to look about how are you perceiving this? And a part of it is you said the best setters in the world make one or two, let's call them setting errors per set.
Mm-hmm.
How many bad reads do you think we see per set with middles? How many missed opportunities in attack? Like how many? And so to me, it's definitely more than one or two. It's probably I actually haven't put any thought into being like, oh, how many times did I misread a ball or misjudge a situation? Right. But again, I'm just looking at it as a middle. I'm just having a little fun with you guys. You know, that's
but Taylor, that's the expectation is for you guys to make a lot of mistakes.
And that's what I'm saying, dude. We need to get rid of that expectation and hold middles to a higher standard, dude. How many times did I gotta say that?
Taylor. We understand the job is hard, and that's why we can't. It's not realistic to hold you to an expectation to be there on a double block every time.
Yeah, it's not realistic to think that, 50 years ago we'd be driving in Ferraris, and holding a computer in our pocket.
All right, I see what you're saying. Okay. I have another part of this. How many times do setters touch the ball, and how many times do middles touch the ball?
100%, dude. 100%. That's why we need to change that, dude. Right now, best middles in the world. I mean, I think we should go back to middle sets. Like classic open gym community center, dude. I think whoever's in the middle should be setting the ball. But that's just me.
No bias.
No bias. Also, you guys, I was a setter, dude. I'm one of you. You know what I mean? I'm one of you.
Just shoot. T. Averill was a setter.
And let me take myself back there. I remember what it was like to have that kind of responsibility, To be quite honest, it's so much more fun. Having the responsibility, while it may seem like responsibility goes in two ways. When you win, it's like you led your team to greatness. When you lose, and you probably don't even get so much credit. I can empathize with you boys there, If you win a sick game in 5 or you played really well, a lot of the times it's big scorers, guys who scored the most points. That's who's getting the most recognition, or a guy who scored the last point or whatever,
Right.
So that's tough. I think that's where actually setters and middles share the same responsibility, and doing great things like touching the ball makes such a huge difference. And it doesn't show up in the stat book, there's so many little things you can do as a middle that don't show up in the stat book. And to some degree, it's like no one's reading the setter stat book. No one gives a shit. They want to see who scored the most points, who's the best player. So I feel you there.
And I think the other thing that you just have to consider also is that middles also, there's so many things that they get blamed for that I think is not their responsibility at the highest levels. I'm like free ball and setting responsibilities, I personally think should be way more on liberos. I think middles almost too often are trying to take those balls, and it drives me nuts. I'm like, let our freaking libero.
That's the wrong guy. You're saying that's the wrong guy, Joe.
I know, and it drives me nuts because I've not dude. I always back. So when we were little kid playing junior volleyball, our club, our dad was our coach, but our rules middles do not touch any ball, and I never recall all the way through our 18th year rarely did we miss any free balls or nobody didn't set the second ball. As soon as middles started getting involved in this, all the time we're shanking balls over the net. We're freaking misplay. Yesterday we played a team. The guy set the ball past our 3-meter line. The other team's middle set it past our 3-meter line out of bounds. He was setting. I'm like, why is he set? The libero was right there to play the ball. I'm like, there's so much that, and so middles. I think they have like attacking, blocking, be really good at that. I've always in serving. In the setting, like for me, it's so frustrating.
Hey, Gage, I don't know.
Those small
Can you hear me on
moments.
this private line? Why don't you tell Joe to just calm down over there, okay? He's taking things a little too far. I'm not
No,
gonna
I was
this
just
part of the
like,
interview.
there's so many times I'm like, you miss opportunities. And I'm not saying every middle can't set every middle, but I'm just saying like general system.
You're being too nice, dude. Most middles can't set. That's the truth. Most middles can't set. Most middles should get the shame that comes with being a bad setter. You know, everyone's experienced middles who just can't set, and you're just like closing your eyes and you're like, yeah, let's let the libero take it. For the most part, I agree. And that's, I think the real issue is that kids are specializing in the middle so early. And really, I put a lot of responsibility on coaches. For example, like something, I mean, Micah, like on your team when you guys were a kid, obviously everyone knows that story. Like you guys were just legendary all throughout club. And I can imagine like all of you played on the beach, like all of you guys were always playing different positions, more or less, you know?
Right.
And like, how do you think that impacted the athlete and what you're capable of now as a setter?
No, 100%. We all were the same height. Like
Yeah.
there was no like differentiating positions because we all looked the same and we all did the same drills. We all passed every day. We all set every day. My dad just made all of the same player pretty much, and then we just moved
Their middles
around.
were the smallest players on the team, I think, if I remember right.
Yeah,
Your middles were
I
always
think
the shortest
18
players.
18's year, I was the tallest at 6'2", and Tui and Evan might have been the next tallest.
Dude, you're
And they were
not
like,
6'2". You're not 6'2", but you're like 6'3".
Bro, you're not
Yeah.
6'2". You're 6'3".
Yeah, I am. All right.
You're like
well,
6'4".
I was definitely the
6'4".
tallest.
Gotta be
I'm
6'5"
not
at
even-
least.
I'm not even
Bro, you got like a
6'4".
size 19 foot. What are you talking about?
Hey, you know what that means, huh?
Big socks.
Bro, he's got that Hawaiian wood.
But no, I think that it's definitely necessary. And like at the highest level, you see these guys that are like the middles usually at the highest level are able to take some balls and like some responsibility and not blow it. Like on the national team, everyone can set. Max is a good setter. You're a good setter. Dave's a good setter. Ball control wise, they can take short balls. Like when it gets to that level, the middles are legit. Simone is like cut serving gnarly cuts and like can set. Everyone at that level can do it. It's just that level in between where they're specified and they're big, but they're not required to like, they're not held to that same standard that everyone else is, and they kind of get away with it.
Yeah,
Whereas the
because,
top level teams, if you touch it and it's not good, no matter who you are, it's like it needs to be good.
I mean, 100%.
And
Sorry,
what my
Joey,
argument, I was just saying, what my argument is middles who aren't good at it, we don't need to force it. Like you don't, just because some coaches have this philosophy that middles should be set. Like, okay, the guy can't do it. Why are we forcing this? I see it too often. Just watching volleyball a
That's
lot
kind of
nowadays.
that's kind of like how I feel like coaches need to use their personnel way more. Like there's not a lot of like coaches that is like every year, whoever they have, they're willing to change their systems based on what they have. Everyone kind of like so stuck in like, okay, this is what I am as a coach. And it's like, you got a big opposite this year and then next year you don't. Like, how are you going to use your players and get the best out of what you got? And like strategize based off that. And a lot of people aren't doing that, I feel like, as coaches. It's very system oriented and they do it this way. And like you plug players into a system instead of like, oh, Taylor's a really good second setter. Like let's play to the net and play with some speed or anything like that. It's not being done as much.
Well, it's interesting. Actually, we have a new coach. Our coach got fired like a month ago. Or like
You want to
What?
Can you touch
Weren't you
on that
guys like you?
situation? Can you touch on that situation with Kirle?
No. In fact, I wish you wouldn't have said his name. It's totally fine. I'd rather not.
Okay.
But it's a pretty simple scenario. Our coach was this like little Italian dude, and he had quite the like traditional ego, kind of like, we are men, we must be like men. He was a really nice. I actually really like got to. I think something as I'm getting older, I'm learning to just accept people for who they are. And so he was someone where I was like, I can accept you for who you are. You're not going to be a coach that's going to like have an impact on my future in terms of like, I'm learning something from you. And his style and approach was like so traditional. And what's really been, what I really would love to touch on, which I think is just really interesting, is you would assume when you get to like the highest levels, that coaches would be a representation of the level you're playing at. And I found that to be like such a disappointment in my professional career. And obviously it's like more or less subjective. But I hear the same complaints in the locker room about how practice is boring, or like it'll only take a few weeks for us to get to know a coach and we're like making jokes about the way he talks or like his style or like the way he's like coaching or reacting to things. And it's just like, dude, it honestly makes me so sad. And I think to some degree, the example I give, and I know you boys can probably feel very similarly, like a coach like Milan Zarkovic absolutely changed the way I perceive volleyball, the way I train, the way I've adopted like some of the things I learned from him. And I take them into the environment that I don't have control in, like an environment within an environment, an inception of environment, to create more like chaos in my training or more game realistic type situations. And I think that's a big, to bring that back, it's like the big problem that I see is it's not just the coaching, it's like the training environment. And for example, like when you get to the professional level, at least the way I've been training with last year in France was like one of the worst, where we'd like do hitting lines for like 30 minutes, like middles never got a chance to work on a skill like setting. And I just think it's like such a disappointment. And to your point, you see at the highest level, for a middle to make it at the highest level, they either need to be like 11 feet tall or they need to be good at all the skills. And even the super tall guys are normally pretty decent at setting out of system balls, you know, like broken plays and being able to do something athletic. I don't know. I just think that's really interesting. And it's really made me sad that more than less coaches I've had, I've just felt like we're a disappointment.
Do you think also that is a little bit in part of you being at a developmental stage when you're reaching these coaches? Because I feel like Milan had came into the USA gym and not had that effect on some guys that were like, this is a little bit different in my mind, and people are like pretty stuck in their ways. And then the coach is not coaching, it's kind of just like a manager of people.
Well, that's a really interesting concept. And for example, guys, by the way, I started a podcast like a few weeks ago. It's not a big deal. I released an episode. I didn't tell anyone about it. I'm kind of embarrassed about it. Doesn't matter. Anyways, I talked with...
Plug it right now.
It's called Tallest Podcast on Earth. Just started it. Anyways,
Tallest podcast.
Yeah. Okay. And so I did an interview with Austin Einhorn, and he's wrote a book on coaching skill, that kind of thing, that type of anyways, so something I had mentioned with him was the same idea about Milan and like the impact he had on me. And the part that we discussed a little bit was, as a coach, this is where things are interesting, right? Is like, to me, Milan's style of training, dude, I miss it so much. I miss showing up to the gym and I know we're going to play some game I haven't played. And I know I'm going to get to like pass set hit as a middle, especially, like it lights me up, dude. My heart, I start to jitter, you know, I get so excited. And like, I don't get that anymore because I know now, for example, we're going to do hitting. We're going to do a basic warm up, do hitting lines. My point is, what's really hard is I was actually so surprised when Milan came to the gym. I was like, I can't, dude, this is like the godfather of volleyball to me. I love this guy. And like, not just his passion as a coach and who he is, but his style of training, I just love so much. And I was so excited to like get to share that with other players on the national team. And it like blew me away how, and I'm going to sound like an anarchist or something, but like how brainwashed all these athletes were, that they just needed that same, like, throw the ball back and forth. And then we pepper, and then let me slowly do my blocking warm up. And like, then we'll hit a bunch of like no block, like hitting lines. And I just was like so surprised. And so then they got asked to do something different. And how do you tell a guy like Micah, Matt, Thomas Jeschke, like guys who I really love, like are such good people, but like they were just like, nah, I'd rather just like go off on the side and do this. Like, this is stuff for kids, you know, like running around and moving your hips around and tossing the ball straight up and then running and touching a line, like, you know. But dude, I see so much value in that. And I've just been surprised that every team I've been on, it's like, I've never found anything close to it. It's always like they it's like there's been this scroll passed down from coaches, and they just like open the scroll and they're like, today we will do hitting lines and then hitting lines with a serve. You know, it's just like, it makes me so sad, dude. And it fires me up, dude. I just was curious if you guys had the same experience.
Dude, I tell people this all the time because people ask about, everybody knows Milan. First of all, I realized that everybody knows who this guy is, has been coached by in some way. And dude, I've never felt more like just refined and like just in sync with my serve, any skill. Like you're just so like in touch with everything because of the style in which he trains. It's like I know if I want to hit there, I could hit there with maximum speed. And nowadays, like I'm constantly trying to figure out. I feel like sometimes like in my past 3 years, there's been like a whole week where I haven't served a single ball. In Hawaii, we didn't go a whole 12 hours without like doing like some sort of like hit. You're attacking from like the 10-foot line and you take a step back and you're hitting from there and it's from the end line. But that type, like, and coaches all the time ask me why he does the stuff that he does. And some of the stuff I can't even like really explain, but I just know for me, it just helps so much.
I can help
and I try to explain to the best of my ability. And like, it's like he always talks about how he starts from like, and all his practices start from this really simple thing and like close in proximity, and you grow from there. And he always talks about like that's how you build control and you build confidence. And all the drills do that. And I try to explain that. Like he always talks about like every single practice is designed like you build on top of each other. You build everything. And then the whole month of training is built on top of each other. And all that, there's like progress and there's a plan. Or like you talked about, you run into coaches outside of that gym now. It's just like, okay, it's the same thing. There's nothing really being built at all. There's nothing really being worked on that you feel. And so it's frustrating, and you don't develop any confidence in a skill because it's like, all right, well, do the same drill every day and I haven't really worked on I feel like I haven't worked on anything. It's just and there's no like accountability. That's the other thing. The accountability has for all those drills. If you're not doing your job right, the entire drill is effed up. And if one guy's not doing his job, he's on his ass like immediately, and you're kind of like back in focus.
Dude, and I just want to touch on this really quick. Something also I like about him is when he yells at you, it's done in this way of, because you respect him so much, you don't take it as like my coach is yelling at me. You take it like this guy who believes in me is holding me to a higher standard. And I think that's such a miscommunication, because I think a lot of coaches, that's their idea, that's their plan, but they do it in a way where it's like, dude, you haven't proven, like, I don't respect you as a coach. And that seems to be the biggest problem that I see. I do want to touch on like what you said about sometimes you're like not even sure what you're working on. You're just working on something with his style of training. Something I think is interesting, and again, I talked about last week, was this idea of like owning a skill. And I think the problem that I'm seeing is like at the highest level, like free attack or like hitting lines, I've already owned the skill of hitting the ball. In fact, I've probably owned it to a point of even if there's a commit block on me. And so I think what gets difficult, or what I think coaches aren't continuing to reach for, is you have these players who own these like really technical baseline foundational skills. Now you need to in some way create some novelty for them, because otherwise they're not learning. And so that's the part that I think frustrates me so much. And so, for example, like taking Milan's practices, and I've started over the last like 3 or 4 years creating like my own environment to feel like I'm in that environment, even though I'm in an environment that's like not up to me. So for example, like serving a ball. Now, obviously serving a ball, like we all in this gym, I would say even in this gym, in this room, including, we're not even in the same room. Anyways, Gage, all of us can serve a ball. And I would say we own the skill to like jump serve a ball, right? Now it's still, obviously it's a hard skill, especially like in a game, which is why you miss sometimes. That's fine. But to continue to like sharpen that sword, I think the ability to, can you serve from the left side? Can you serve from the right side? Can you serve with just 2 steps? Can you serve with a full approach? Like really playing around, like changing angles. I think that's something, at least now, that I try to do to continue to push myself in that way. So if we're doing some boring drill and it's like serve, receive, there's no pressure, there's nothing. Guys are just kind of going through the motions. And to me, that's not really focusing on getting better at a skill. It's just kind of going through the motions. Why? Because we've been doing it for like over a decade. you know? And so changing things up, changing the way you take an approach, changing from where you're serving the ball. And that was even a new one for me. I was pretty like, I like to serve from 1-6 and I'm just going to go that way every single time. And so I started trying to play with where I serve the ball from. And even just doing something like that, and something in Milan's drills, he's tossing the ball at 6 meters. Like he never, at least the way I remember him, like he never just like gave someone a free ball. He would just throw a ball up in the air and someone had to initiate the free ball. Like that skill of having to react and then in that moment make a decision of who's hitting this ball, where am I going to put this ball? Like I just think that there's so much value, and it's such a simple, basic tool that like scales to every different skill you're trying to work on. And I just find so much value in that. And I just think it's like, it's really, really sad to me that I feel like every year it's like, to some degree, I feel like I'm on my own to get better at skills.
Mm-hmm. Dude, all this stuff you just hit it right on point. Like this Milan style training, and people all the time, it's hard for me to fully encapsulate everything that he does and trains. You just have to go like watch train. People go watch his train, like what's going on, like a lot of the times. And what you just talked about, how like stuff translates for me, like something and after the match, I realized immediately, like this is something we do every single day. The Big West final for us, my senior year, I was not serving well for my normal position where I serve in 1. And then I'm just like, I'm going to switch it up, go from 5. And that's something we do every day in practice. And then all of a sudden I started like hitting like way better balls. I'm like, but this is something we train every single day. Where like right now in the style of training that I've been in the past 3 years, I don't have the confidence to be able to go do that and like hit the same quality ball that I would if I was like in kind of like Milan's training sessions. And like the stuff that he does, like you never feel uncomfortable when you toss the ball outside your body, because that's something he does to you all the time. And you're stepping and you close and have to snap it in. Like all that type of stuff is just like game-like situations that happen all the time, and he just gets you really comfortable. And so I know we got off a lot on this, and we talked. Micah has so many questions always about Milan, and I try to answer it to the best of my ability. But I think like today really gave him a better look inside kind of how Milan has built his athletes.
Totally. And the way that I describe it in my head is like Milan brings this sense of chaos. And in the game, there's this floating sense to some degree of chaos, at least as a middle. Like I got to read, what's my middle doing? Where's there's so many little cues I'm picking up on. So my ability to react to different chaotic situations. I mean, that's the difference between like those little points that have you win the 4th or 5th set, you know, like broken play. Now Micah, the setter, has got to hit a ball from 3 meters and it's a little outside the antenna, and you can put that ball over and you're not just like having to set the ball over. That stuff makes a huge difference. And I think happens more than we talk about or more than we think about. Those little tiny touches, reaction touches that make a huge difference. And so when you see coaches like standing on the ground, hitting balls at people, then they hit a ball that's like a little out of the libero's reach and the coach is like kind of apologizing. Like, I hate that. You know, like I like the randomness. I like the chaos, because the biggest thing, the last thing I'll talk about, we don't have to talk about them anymore. The biggest translation I saw was like, we trained in a way that made things feel chaotic. So then when we played 6-on-6, it literally started feeling like the game slowed down so much. Now I'm like, I'm siding out and I have like 15 seconds to be at the net, or to like everything felt so slow and like so in my control, because we trained in an environment that felt heavily chaotic, and you can't really understand what he's saying to some degree. So you're like kind of figuring drills out as you go. And yeah, dude,
it's so funny because that couldn't be more drastically different than my upbringing, because mine is like the most disciplined, like military-esque, basic, simple, like we never played 6-on-6. So we never even had the chaos of a game. We actually like had dumbed it down where it's like, I just pass 100 balls, and then Tui passes 100 balls, and then we do free balls, and then we set 100 balls, and then we serve 100. And it's like, it's funny because we came to the same realization where it's like, we would get into the game and everything would be really easy, simple, and like we would break it down into like every touch, because we've done that touch 100 times. And so like we kind of would come to the place you guys were in where we felt like everything was slow, but from the extreme opposite style of training, which is kind of interesting, because we had reached it. Like when I was in a game, everything was, and I've never felt more in touch with like I've never felt more confident in my life than when I was training like that. And the game was so slow. Even though we never played 6-on-6, my dad had just convinced us like we've done every one of these contacts. We just never do it like against another team. So you just do it how you do it.
Did you enjoy training that style of training, or like did you enjoy
so much?
Yeah,
man. It was the most meditative, like, and I was such a rascal kid. Like I was in the principal's office every day, and every day in practice, I wouldn't say a word, and like I had the most joy, and like we all loved it. But we wouldn't talk. It was such a different fulfillment. It wasn't like smiling and joking around. It was like very focused work that just like was very fulfilling and like meditative. And we loved it. We loved it.
I don't know, from a libero's perspective.
It's crazy.
From a libero's perspective, I don't know. Obviously, that's all we do, free balls and stuff. But like, my dad and Milan, like, it's just all fast paced and like entertainment for me personally. Like, I like that. Like, I like that way more. Like over here, like it's definitely a lot slower. And there's definitely times where I needed it to be a lot slower. I feel like there's times for taking it slow and times for taking it fast. That's the one thing about Milan. And sometimes I felt like I was like, okay, I need, instead of adding all these 3 things into one, maybe I should just focus on this one thing and then get there. You know what I'm saying? So just kind of different.
But it takes a certain amount of like intention. If you're gonna do it like the slow way, you need like a group that's gonna do it together, or like you need to be like Kobe, where it's like, or Tom Brady, where they're just Tom Brady practices like 5-step dropbacks for 2 hours.
Dude,
yeah, doesn't even throw a ball.
The part I'm curious. Oh, keep going.
But in that practice, he finds it like very rewarding in a different sense of like, it's not like this crazy novelty, and it's not like, but it's just like meditate, and it becomes like a part of you, and you can just do it.
See, now
and just like when it's in the game, it's just like, wow, like,
the example,
I've done this. It's so nice,
dude. The example I think about when I'm hearing you say this is like setting into a target. Do you think that a coach just throwing up a ball, like a perfect pass ball, and you're just, or like a little, maybe moves you around a little bit, but just setting into a target, how much is that actually helping you on the skill of setting a ball in a match? Because in a match, it's just so much different. Like you're basing, like to some degree, you're basing it on what you see through your peripheral vision, right? Like the tempo that they're coming in, whether that's with the middle or the outside, like kind of getting a feeling of like, did he pass the ball inside? What's his approach like? Like what's, maybe you're taking a peek and seeing like, how is the block set up? Like there's just so many things going on. And so when I see people just like setting into a target, in my head, I'm just like, I don't know, dude. I think to some degree, like you own the skill of setting. And it's not that just that everything has to be harder. It's that everything has to challenge you in some way for there to be like a connection where you're actually learning something.
Well, I think one way that we got lucky was that we would do that, and we only did it like an hour and a half, 3 times a week. But then outside of that, like I'd play baby court for like 10 hours, and like there's no structure there, and we're doing whatever we want. And then I'd play basketball and like football, and so I was getting the like novelty and the like experimenting and like all of this chaos outside of like that very regimented practice. And I think probably that's why there's a little bit of that to my game as well, like the chaos, because I've played more on the jungle gym than I have in a serious setting.
Micah, you're a freak athlete, that is for sure, and your childhood had so much to do with it. That's very apparent in just the athlete that you've become. Just, I'm curious, do you think a coach tossing balls and setting them into a net makes you a better setter? Like, do you think that has some value?
I like, in my own personal opinion, yeah, I do think it makes you a better setter. But I don't think that that's the only thing you need to be doing. But I think that working on fundamentals, and like while I'm setting target, I'm not aiming for the target. I'm like, okay, feed the ball this whole round. And then it's like, okay, finish. I'm working my finish. And then it's like when I get people on the court, I've worked on my fundamentals are there, and I can where I see you, I can now place the ball. But like if it's without an intention, I think you're gonna lose. Like setting into a target for an hour with no intention.
Bro, you're set up to set a ball. Beneficial. If I close my eyes, dude, I can see it every time. You got these just beautiful paddles. You do this like beautiful paddle thing.
You've always done the paddle. You've always said that there's paddles. I wouldn't say it's aesthetically pleasing, but I think if you do things with intention, you're gonna get better. And like a lot of the greatest, what they do of all time have worked on the fundamentals and broken it down to a very like scientific degree and done the basics a lot over and over and over. Like Kobe or Tim Duncan or like those guys, when you watch them practice, they're very like intentional. They're not just, oh, let's play jungle ball. And like Kobe doesn't go in there and play jungle ball, and LeBron doesn't go in there and play like they're very intentional about their work. But they also have like the ability to, in chaos, break it down and stay calm and all that kind of stuff that's mentally specific to them.
Taylor, I've gone like before Hawaii when I was like I target all the time, target, and then I start work with Milan, and he doesn't want to see a freaking target in his sight. He hates that stuff. And more and more I worked with that. I'm like, I totally understand why. And the work I did with him helped me so much. And then after,
can you give an example of what that looked like, just for people maybe who are interested?
He would always, when I was, especially in my first 2 years, he would always be like, all right, you go grab 2 hitters. And he would always like stress to me. I met with him like constantly my first 2 years. He's like, make sure you have connections with these guys. Like he'd always make a point to make sure he's like, these are the guys you need to have a connection with in order to like get more and more playing time. And it wasn't necessarily like the guys you would think about all the time. But he's like, these are like the key guys like for you. And so I'd always push, like obviously guys like Capono, stuff like that. When Rado was there in his early years, I was getting him in, and it would be just a series of balls. Like it would be like a series of Milan drills that would get me in different positions, and I'd be coming from different places always. Like he changed up the direction, and it wouldn't even be like natural setting, like locate. I'd be coming from like area 5 corner, like sprinting down from there, understanding like how to get my body in the right position and in a balanced position, and being simple also. He's like, so he'd create chaos, and then at the end he'd want me to be like really simple on contact. And to be honest, like I missed so much of that training with him, but it was always like he would always say every single hitter is so different, especially in area 4. He's like, the location, the height, how far you need to get a guy out to the pin is so different for every single hitter. I'm not going to set up a target here and have you set into a target, because the realistic scenario is like that target probably is not even a hittable ball for any of our hitters. Like none of our hitters want the ball there.
Dude, yeah.
And he's like, and so he was a big advocate for that. But then the past 3 years overseas, I have coaches who love target work, and I found like ways for it to be beneficial for me. And I understand like breaking the skill down and stuff, but it doesn't have the same sort of, I don't feel the same sort of rhythm as I did with Milan, because it's just like ball after, it's so many balls, so repetitive, and you don't have time to think about, oh, where'd my freaking thumb finish, or where, like, what was contact? Like I wasn't thinking about that. Like where now I'm like thinking about the smallest things, and when I do that, to be honest, I feel like I don't set, and I'm not at my best when I'm thinking about that. And with Milan, it's just like there's no like thinking about that stuff. And he would break it down at times, and he'd talk like there's a couple things that he would talk to you about, but he doesn't want you just thinking about your mechanics of setting.
And I think, dude, I think there's so much value in that, right? Like, for example, on the national team, I think we train. John sometimes really breaks things down, and we talk a lot about these tiny little details. And to some degree, for me, and I was raised on Milan school to some degree, like I find that it's almost too, like we're almost doing it too much. It feels like we're talking way too much about these tiny little, like we just need to train situations that create an environment for these situations that discuss those things within the environment, and that's what I loved about Milan's style of training, was like it added this, it's like he was teaching you things without words. Like you were learning things without potentially just focusing on that one thing. And I just think that that's really cool. And I think that, I don't know, that I just learned a lot from my time there.
I completely agree with that. I think like things are overanalyzed a lot in that gym. And like when you're not thinking, like, because I've done a few of Milan's kind of stuff and I love it. And I'm like, this is perfect. Like it's very reminiscent of actually like when I was, even though it's really broken down, the skills, we didn't think, we didn't talk, like nothing was we're with like Tui and Evan, and it's like, dude, just pass the ball. It's like we didn't use like shoulders over your eyes and like angles. We were just like, just get the ball there.
And like, to some degree, you learned you play a little jungle ball.
That's just how we operated. We're just like, dude, just don't freaking think. Like even Tui came. I remember Thornton loved this comment because Tui came with us to France and was following the game plan and had like no digs. And Tui comes off the court, he's like, dude, why the heck am I freaking following this game plan? I'm the stupidest person on the team. I just gotta just do whatever I want. And he comes to Thornton, he's like, dude, Thornton, I'm just gonna dig the ball. Just don't tell me where to go. I'm like, yeah, exactly. Like, dude, like that's just how we did it. There was no thinking, like, and that's such. Dude, I think it's too overanalyzed.
Well, and for example, like I just built this blocking course, right? And I started getting feedback. People still ask me questions like, how do I get better at read blocking? Like in some way, there's this like magic skill that if you're just so like, and the truth is like with something as simple as that. And I think read blocking transfers into so many other skills in every position, just reading the game. And people always ask me like, is there some shortcut basically to reading? And while what you're doing with your eyes is an interesting one to look at, especially for kids who are a little younger and helping them become more efficient with like, in that course, we talk about like being efficient with our hands, with our feet, strategies we can do to make up for lost time, which is everything as a middle blocker. But I think just getting good at read blocking, it's like, dude, there's no substitute for playing baby court when you're 10 years old, you know, like playing on the beach, playing as much as you can. That's the best way to get better. It's actually that simple, you know?
Yeah.
And I think kids are learning, like they're trying to learn all these techniques and all these things at like such an early age. And to some degree, I'm like, bro, just go play. Like it's actually that easy and it's way more fun, you know?
Right.
I don't know. We talked a lot about training.
No, it's awesome. I mean, people love this stuff.
I'm sorry.
So many people ask about the Hawaii training, like gym and stuff. And you have to be in it to really like fully comprehend. Like I agree. We can sit here and explain stuff. And even people who are in it, like you're saying, the summer he came into the USA gym, I was working with the Pan Am group mostly, and it was so hard for guys to. And the issue was such a short period of time, and they're so used to something, and it's just like thrown onto them, and it's just and for Milan, he's getting into an environment that he's not used to either, and he's got all these people trying to tell him what to do, and he's just like, I know he wasn't super thrilled about it. I spoke to him a couple of times throughout the training blocks, and he was just frustrated a lot, and the guys didn't make it easier. Like me and Colton and those guys are just telling us just listen to what he has to say, and his style of training is not something like where he comes in for 2 weeks and then he's going to make a total difference. Like that's something you build over 4 years, and you see like why Hawaii every single year now they're having guys step up in like 3-4 years into it now. Every single guy's able to compete at a pretty high level. Like there's guys on the team right now. When I was there, I'm like, I don't even know how this guy's in the gym, I'll be honest. And like now he's contributing part of the team, and they're playing really well, and they're just he's done so much for that program. Everybody you talk to, like he worked with all the top players you see with the Serbian national team were all developed by him at some point.
It's so interesting though, because I think we are kind of the guys that if Milan comes in, we can figure it out and kind of do it and like have a great time. But at the same time, the people that are like the best players on the national team, because we're not the best players. We're like all like free thinkers, and we're well rounded, but like and Matt and like Max and Micah and Eric, they're all like a lot more regimented people than us. And it's interesting to think of like we definitely have our school of thought, but to think that like we're not getting the results that their school of thought is getting. So it makes me a little bit like introspective into what we're doing wrong in a sense, but at the same time, in other aspects of our life, I would never trade the experiences that we get from the way that we approach volleyball and life for the experiences they get in the way that they approach volleyball and life. And that's, I'm sure they'll say the same thing about trading their life for mine. But it's just interesting to think like the two different school of thoughts, and how Milan is kind of more our coaches. He's more the coach of our school of thought than their school of thought.
Dude, and Milan's obsession with short court is what really is. Milan's obsession with short court Oh my gosh,
Amazing,
that's
dude.
a
And he's good.
Dude,
He's good.
dude, he's so good.
Yeah.
He's
So
so dang good, man.
One
But he
on one
cheats.
in the
He
3 meter
cheats.
with one bounce.
With the
dude,
bounce-
he used
the
to
bounce, he's so
destroy
nasty.
me in that.
his control is
He's
crazy.
so nasty.
It's
Yeah.
wild.
Dude, so I don't know if you know, I don't know if I said this in the podcast. Charlie forbid it because somebody came under the net one time and rolled my ankle, like one of the freshmen or something, and so he's like, "That's it, no short court. We're not doing this anymore." And Milan and I would sneak into Clum Gym in like early mornings, like Saturday,
like, Rado
and we'd have like
Gage,
3 or 4 hour battles with each other.
So sick.
Because Charlie
Dude,
would
after the USA gym, after I would practice, I would stay to like for Pan Am to finish, and then play short court for like an hour and a half with Joe Gage and Cupono. Joe Cupono and Milan. I was just like, dude, I gotta play short court, and he's freaking good, man.
He's goated.
So good.
And he lets you know. Let me tell you. I just have since we're on, like we talked about Milan training, but anyone who follows your Instagram definitely sees that you're very good about posting about what you do, like strength wise and band resistance and just kind of working out. And of course that song, like I'm working out, like that song.
Dude, I'm trying to collab with that guy. He hasn't.
It is.
I gotta get him to DM
That's your
me
song,
back,
man.
bro. I'm like, I want to go on stage and work out like at his concert. I'm like, bro, you're some like Australian, like nobody knows who you are. Come on, why don't you respond to me, dude?
100%. You should. Missed opportunities. So like, but a lot of them are stuff I've never seen before. So how do you come up with this? Like, how do you come out and how do you know it works? And like, cause I feel like a lot of stuff you do is like beneficial to a lot of positions. So how did you come up with this stuff, like the research and whatnot, and the time it takes?
That's a great question. So I mean, a part of my story was I was just a tall, kind of baby fat boy, you know. I wasn't like thick, but you know what I mean? I was never like a clearly like great athlete. You know, I wasn't like natural jumper. I wasn't. And so when I had shoulders, so I went to UC Irvine, transferred to Hawaii. When I got to Hawaii, after my freshman year, I had shoulder surgery. And when I was there, I met a guy named Daniel Marchong, and he worked with the women's basketball team there. But I had heard like guys like Taylor Crabb, Triborn, Josh Taylor, if you guys remember who that is. Some of those guys, some of the Hawaiian dudes had worked with this guy. And so I got introduced to him, and he had this style of training that was just like so unorthodox. And he was actually in the gym a lot. So he would help me. We used a machine called an ARP, and he would help me with some of the rehabilitation of my shoulder after having surgery. Now, at that time, I also was let go from the team at Hawaii. So I was in this moment for the kicked off the second school program. So I had this moment of like, I was with Jeff Hall and we were talking about my opportunities to play now. I couldn't play in the NCAA anymore. I had to go play in Canada, and talking about going to like McMaster, dude. And I remember like being at Blazing Steaks, just like crying, dude. Blazing Steaks, dude. And I was crying, just like, I can't believe that I'm at this point. I cannot believe that this is happening. And just decided it's like, I don't know if you guys got spanked as a kid, dude, but we got spanked with a wooden spoon. Yeah. And it just reminds me of like, I did something wrong and I know it. And I could see my mom or dad like walking to the hallway closet. That's where they kept the spoon. And they're just like walking there. I'm like, okay, Taylor, okay. And they just walk over there. And I'm just like, no, wait, please. And I'm just like, no, I didn't mean please. It's like freaking out. Like my brain's just like exploding with ideas of how can I get out of this? And that's more or less what happened to me at that point. Going into my sophomore year I was like, dude, this can't be final. This can't be how my career ends. And so I met him and was like, hey, help me go all in on rehabbing my shoulder. But like, I just want to redefine myself as an athlete. And his style of training to some degree, like Milan, and I got introduced to them in the same year, was like, whoa, this is way different. This is so challenging. I'm enjoying this so much. And so I met with Daniel 6 months later, got back on the team as a punishment, had to play middle blocker, which is why we're stuck there today. But I came back after those 6 months of not being on the team in January, like completely redefined myself as an athlete. And his style was like this combination of like long hold isometrics and being explosive. And just like, he turned me, literally, I owe so much of my athletic career to him in my heart, you know? because I went from in those 6 months during having shoulder surgery, I went from a 26-inch vert to a 36-inch vert in 6 months. And I was just like, there's no way. Like, I'm shaped like an actual big bird, you know? And I just was like, I couldn't believe it. It really changed my life, which is why to some degree now I'm so passionate about that side of things. Cause I really believe that so much of your athletic ability, while there's like childhood, there's so many things that genetics that play a role into your potential, how long you last in your career and your future athletic ability. There's also so much in between that can be built. And I had never experienced it until then. And that's what started this train of like, oh, maybe I don't just need to like work on my bench press and squat super heavy weight to be a good athlete. And met with Daniel, and we never lifted a weight over 80, 90 pounds, dude. So it just completely changed my idea. And as things evolved, then I met a guy named Austin Einhorn who owns a Pyros team. And he has a bit more of like a evolutionary side of things, right? The side that we're humans who evolved from monkeys. That's a really dumb way of putting it down, but like, and we evolved to swing and do different things and climb. And so he brings this holistic evolutionary perspective that I also was like, oh, this is amazing. We kept my shoulders healthy. I mean, it's been, 10 years since I had shoulder surgery and I haven't had any problems. I've had a few injuries in between, but like, so my actual problem now is feeling like I know too many methodologies, And so my journey now is trying to and continuing to create what I feel like works for me. Because at one point I was doing Daniel's style of like isometric explosive, and I saw what it did for my athletic ability. I started adding in these like evolutionary concepts that were also associated more with just like being like human first, athlete second, kind of, And I stopped sitting in chairs for my first like 3 years professionally. First thing I would do is get rid of my furniture and get like a wrestling mat and get a rug and put the rug over it. And that was how I came home and sat. That's how I watched TV. And that had a huge impact on like my mobility, just how good I felt in general, because I was constantly like changing positions. Cause let's be honest, like sitting on the floor isn't as comfortable as sitting in this nice wooden chair, So all of that to say, like, that's now what you see on my Instagram is me just like throwing up information, trying to share ideas and concepts, and really now trying to give back. And that's kind of where I'm at now, is like really feeling like it's my chance to give back, to show another way, and to try to offer myself as a part of the solution instead of just seeing like all this noise on Instagram. I mean, I've in my career of Instagram, that's really sad to say, deleted it twice, because I was just like, I don't like being the guy posting. I feel like it just takes me away from being in the moment. And I'm just such a go with the flow kind of dude. And so it's taken a lot for me, even to this day, to like just post something, dude, like do something. Cause I started getting that feedback, which I'm sure you guys have got without a system, because what you're doing is also so amazing. And you start getting this feedback like, oh, this is actually like helping people. People find value in this. Like I'm actually providing value now. And so rather than taking a seat on the sidelines being like, I don't want any part of it, I finally got to the point where it was like, I feel like it's my time to give back. I feel like I have a lot to say. And I'm just so tired of just seeing like garbage. And that goes from like specific training to also, I just think there's this lack of awareness for athletes. And there's so many athletes I know that are just like, oh, what do I have to do? Just do this. Okay. And they don't understand and learn about their own body. They're not taking note on things that I think scale and translate and are really valuable, or I find them really fun. I enjoy the process, really.
Well, from a viewer's perspective, I can guarantee, and I'm like I said, I don't even play middle blocker, but I find a lot of those things with explosive work like super beneficial, and that's what I'm learned this year. Like thankfully, like my guy this year, our strength coach, is all about like explosive work and everything like that. It's not about lifting heavy. I used to have a lot of like a lot, like to the point where it was like a knife stabbed me in the knee. Like when I was at Hawaii, like I couldn't even like go downstairs without like, and I don't even jump. But now all those problems are fixed because we do so much band work. I do so much explosive work, not really with heavy weight, but just like controlled explosive work. And I think that's the most important. And my brother always stressed that to me. He's like, you don't need to go squat or like bench press. It's like just go do band work.
And to be clear, like the stuff you see on my Instagram isn't actually, a lot of it isn't like, hey, this is for middle specifically. I do also try to take more of the human first, athlete second. It's a concept that I've learned that I think there's so much more value in. Why? Because to continue, and as we all grow in our career, I'll be 30 in March. I recognize that it's actually about who can stay the healthiest the longest, because whether you want to or not, you're getting better at volleyball. You just are, and I just think that so many kids are like so hyper focused with how can I jump higher? How can I hit higher? Like those are the DMs I get all the time.
Right.
And I try to, trying to be a part of the solution means not giving them like some bullshit or just selling them on some program. It's like, hey, the reality is like, if you didn't really do much about it and you just played volleyball every day, you'll jump higher, you'll hit harder. You just will, because anything you practice consistently, you get better at. That's for pretty much everything in life. And so I try to focus more on, let's address that, because let's feed the ego. Let's stroke it a little. It feels good. I'm sure all of us to some degree wish we could jump higher. Maybe not Michael. Mike, you're quite the athlete. But I don't know, like Joe, I'm sure you're like, oh, I wish I could jump higher, or like, I wish I was a little stronger. And to me, it's now become a quest of how can we address all of it, but make sure we're addressing the most important part first, which is how can we stay healthy? What do I need to start doing to building a healthy base and avoid the common injuries we see? Knees, ankles, hips, shoulders. And so that's a bit of my quest now, is like, to some degree, you got to attract people with like, my tip to jumping higher, and everyone's like, oh, what's the tip? And then I try really hard.
What is it?
To add in like, hey, it's also like, if you just do this one thing, it's not going to do anything. And jumping higher doesn't mean anything if a year later you have to get surgery on your knee. Yeah.
100%. Well,
all the workout, yeah. You have some really and people. I think on my team last year asking me about the one was, I think, were you doing push-ups like on with the weights? Like, I don't even know what you call it. You had two plates where you're doing push-ups on top of, and then they were like, I had my teammates were trying to do with their feet on top of like the weights balancing too. Is that something you're doing with the plates?
I was doing that.
You're doing something like that. My teammates are like, they're trying all this different stuff.
You get like, let's say like thick 45-pound weights, and you get 4 of them, and you have to be in like a crawl position and see how far you can go. It was so hard. I went like 2 feet and was like, who can do it? And no one can do it. It's impossible. So
it's not a doable challenge.
No, it's not. I need more of those undoable challenges.
Yeah, you should call it the impossible challenge #1 and then keep numbering them.
That's a great idea. I love
the impossible challenge.
That would be a really good idea, dude. I love that.
Well, Taylor, Micah also has a match today. I know he wants to get some sleep. And you are a busy man too. We have a couple of just random. So we put out on Instagram. We always like unique questions, like how do you jump higher, stuff like that. We look over those a lot because I feel like we answer them a lot. So we have a series of questions that really have nothing to do with anything we were talking about or volleyball in general. That I think would.
I mean, I can't even believe we just talked about volleyball for like an hour. So.
I know it was a lot, but it was good. It was a good conversation. People are gonna like it.
Volleyball intensive podcast you've ever done.
Yeah, easy, but it was good. It was awesome.
Intensive person we've ever had on.
Very fitting then.
So I'm gonna rattle off just a couple of questions. Maybe everybody can give a quick answer too. Would you rather lay on a cloud or a bed of kelp?
Well, that assumes the cloud can support me.
Right.
Yes.
Like who's choosing bed of kelp? What?
Aquaman.
It sounds horrible, actually.
Maybe. The clouds.
The clouds. Okay.
Yeah. Who's choosing bed of kelp?
That's true. I don't know. I'm just reading off questions. How would you describe your brain in 3 words or less?
I'll give you one word: goldfish.
Bingo. Correct answer.
Bingo. Would you rather be a bird or a fish?
Probably a bird. Yeah, I mean, fish.
A bird.
I mean, fish would be cool, but like, There's always a fish that's bigger than you. I feel like birds don't bother each other, you know, like different bird families that just like all do their own thing. And let's be honest, the most cliche reason would be just to like, you know, have your way, dude. You're the air traffic controller. Just shit on people and just like do whatever, dude. Birds like they're having so much fun.
Birds, yeah, you can go see anything. You can go watch. My thing is like, I can go to any event, live event for free.
Dude, you can sneak into movie
That's
theaters
so
without
true.
worrying about paying, you know? I saw a bird in a Polish movie theater a month ago.
What?
You can do whatever
In the
you
thea-
want, dude. Yeah, it came in the theater and then someone kicked the exit out and it flew out the exit. I'm saying,
And-
birds are wild.
When do you feel most at home, or what makes you feel most at home?
Just being in the sun, dude. Honestly, like very simply, you know. I'm
Not a lot of that in Poland.
No,
Germany, where I'm, northern Germany, I haven't seen the sun in.
dude, this is the
Wow.
most pale my skin has ever been, and I realize now why I hate being pale. Part of it is because like I just don't have great skin. I got like tons of moles. I don't know if it's eczema, whatever. These like little white red dots. I like notice my skin gets redder, and so when I'm sunburned, it's like, oh, because I'm sunburned. What I don't realize is like I probably am just like eating something or something's happening internally that's creating this like red skin feeling. Dude, it's terrible. I'm not a guy for pale. I'd rather like give me the leathery skin. I don't give a shit, you know.
Nice and leathery. Nice
Outrigger,
and
the
leathery.
outrigger retired. Oh my god,
For
this guy's-
sure, dude. That's gonna be me up at like 5 a.m. on a paddleboard, dude.
Hell
Dude,
yeah.
that is the life. Those guys, oh my gosh. I'm like,
Man, that
every
lifestyle's
morning,
insane.
it's so sick. I would love to go out there. Last question. Would you rather only be able to read or only able to speak?
I'm already doing one of those.
It's a good point.
So I'll let that
Valid
answer
point.
itself.
Valid point. No. Yeah, exactly.
100%. Well, Taylor, before we let you off here, I want to give you a quick plug. I know, first of all, you got a lot of stuff going for you, right? You got the blocking course, you got your merch with the Drop Dimes collaboration, new podcast. You want to give a quick shout out to and a quick plug to all those so all of our listeners can hear?
Yeah, sure. First of all, if you're a middle blocker and you want to work one-on-one, I just opened up 2 more slots for the month to work one-on-one. It's something I just started doing a few months ago and have just found so much value in being able to work with people one-on-one. And what I realized is there's just so many, especially in the middle position, there's just not a lot of good coaches. And so, I mean, we go over everything, right? I watch you film, we watch what the best players in the world are doing. I break down my course, all that stuff. If you're interested, contact me at Averill13. That's my Instagram, and also at Gmail is my email. Started a podcast, tallest podcast on earth. Who knows where it'll go, but I'm just
Gotta get Robbie
Bye.
Page on that.
Yeah.
Robbie Page.
guys.
He's a quirky. He's a fun guy too.
Robbie's great, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robbie and I have had some wild times in Mexico, specifically when I was with the Pan Am team. We had a lot of fun, dude. 2014 was good times.
I just see him always doing stuff about being tall. So
Yeah. Well, it's Tallest Podcast, so let's not, it's not about me. It's not about my height. It's just like, oh, cute, because that doesn't make sense, right? Whatever. Anyways, yeah, I put out a middle blocking course. I don't mean to like hype it up in any way, but I put so much time and effort into breaking down what it takes to be a good high-level middle blocker. And Dustin and I put a lot of time into the editing process to make it look good. Just the whole production of it is like, it's unbelievable. And I don't mean to, again, just hype it up because it's my thing. Like, no one else is doing this, dude. And
Yeah.
plug to Dustin Watton and No Easy Buckets. Like, dude, he's starting the path. You guys also are like pushing the envelope of professional players giving back instead of people having to learn from like their coach who never played overseas or played in high school. And again, not that there's anything wrong with that, but it is also a part of the problem is there's not enough professional players speaking out about their experience, about what they've learned. And so I feel really grateful to have even proven to myself that like I can put something that took me like 13 months to do, to like take all the information you guys know as a libero, as a setters, and break that down into tangible little nuggets to feed the children is tough. And to even also make it like for a professional player and so in that course, we break down a lot of blocking concepts that I think most pros don't even think about, things I never talked about, things that I disagree with. And it's just a chance for me to like give my opinion on things. And I don't know, I feel really good about it. Also, I just am launching a website soon, youwon't.com. Your boy got the domain name. I'm pretty stoked. So we don't know what that'll end up being, but for right now, that'll be the space to help the middle blocker and volleyball community. Yeah.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
That was unnecessarily long, but
No. I mean, you got a lot of stuff going on. That's why I kind of roll out the red carpet for you. And
dude, I'm curious from you guys. It's tough. Like, people don't realize, like, even doing a podcast, like posting so much on social media, like, man, it takes a lot of time and effort. It's not as simple as like you scroll and you see this like 8-second reel and it's just like 8 seconds to you, you know, or people are going to listen to this podcast and don't understand the like editing process and so much that goes with so many of those things. So commend you guys as well, because it's work, you know, and it's satisfying and it's so fun to like build a community, but it takes a lot of time and effort on top of most likely being physically exhausted most days. And so good for you guys. I'm really stoked at what you guys are doing.
Hey, thanks so much, Taylor. And again, thanks so much for hopping on the pod, and wish you best of luck, brother.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Jeez.
You can handle the heat. Yeah. You can handle the heat.
Taylor Averill, definitely a guy we're going to stay in touch with, do some collabs with, because... Oh, missed my mic over here. Because that guy is very, very interesting. And, you know, we were talking a little after, and he was just talking about how usually he's a volleyball guy, so... that conversation could have gone in 20 different directions, and definitely a regular we can definitely have on the show for sure. He's got a lot of stuff going on, and we couldn't be happier for him or the volleyball community. But yeah, what was it one thing? Oh yeah, then we were talking about no easy buckets. Then Micah, you said, I mean, I saw the post about no easy buckets. Does that mean Does that mean is that like a setter course or what is that?
No. I was gonna do a setter course a long time ago, and then Dustin was saying he could help me with it as well, but I just don't feel like I'm in that position. Mm-hmm. I'm not. It's so, like, I'm sure everyone goes through it. Even posting on Instagram, you go through it where it's like this imposter syndrome where it's like, who am I to teach setting? Like, why isn't Micah Christensen doing this, or like somebody better? Right. I'm still going through that, just like everyone else is. Taylor said he was going through that as well. So I'm not at that point yet, but I think it's just like a name, image, and likeness thing right now, where he can use me through stuff, and then I post a few things that he'll prepare throughout the year, and it's
every
nothing
month
like
or
that. It's not that. No, not every month.
Okay.
But it's not that big of a thing.
No, yeah.
It's just nice, and I think there's some coaching that's going to be going on where he'll help me find some people to coach, because I did want to start doing that a little bit on the side.
Right. 100%. Spread the love, baby.
Yeah, spread the love. It's not going to be anything in contrast to that assistant family.
No.
So
we never had a problem with that or anything. I think
there's nothing like that.
Spread your wings, brother.
But it is crazy to see, like, now that we've had Taylor on, like, that there is a little bit of this growing in the industry. It's mostly Dustin, I would say, who's always been social media wise ahead of the game. And then Taylor now, and then I would say out of system would be the three.
Yeah, the three pillars, and we'll definitely this summer
the three pillars for sure.
Do a lot of collab, and the McKibben, but the McKibbens are more of the beach.
Oh, of course, and the McKibbens, of course.
Dude, so my question is like, okay,
I just kind of started.
Yeah, the McKibbens.
Joe, your audio is really messed up right now.
Hello.
Okay, there it is. Better.
No, I was just saying that the McKibbens, with what they got going on, like, they only post. They do a 4-man event, they post out. But they're working for Wilson and AVP right now, right? Because I was wondering, they're not playing anymore, so I was just wondering, like, what they've been up to. Because they've done a really good job growing an audience and stuff.
They are incredible as well.
Yeah.
Like,
everybody's more... We're, like, the one thing about us, and I think Taylor's going to fit more into our kind of space, is the type of, or how we view ourselves and how we view our, like, the content and where we want to go with things.
Right.
Dude, we want the lifestyle kind of thing more so, and, like, the personalities more so than the develop. Like, we want to be of use and provide some sort of education that we can, but for the most part, we just like showing the lifestyle and growing a community. That's what we're more about, I feel like. And so I think
Yeah,
Taylor's
that's
going to
more
fit
of
more
like
into that.
a technical aspect.
Yeah.
And the Kibbins are also more entertainment. But I feel like they're a little bit more event and like high. They're really good.
Yeah.
They're starting to do what they're trying to do is like higher events and
Yeah.
higher level stuff. We're more like grassroots. I would say out of
100%.
everyone, we're the most
The men on the
grassroots,
ground.
for sure.
The dirty
For
work,
sure.
baby.
We're the 5 guys in a minivan kind of guys.
100%.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll always
Which is what we want.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're not gonna get
100%.
bougie on you guys. Don't worry.
Well, I just want to, before when we wrap it up again, you're gonna be seeing a lot more Taylor on this channel for sure. We'll be staying in contact with him, and just want to give a fat shout out to our sponsors here, Dr. Price Electrolytes. Use Addison 20% off. Get nice and electrolyted, and also Manscaped, all capital volleyballs. To get 20% off, free worldwide shipping. And just remember, if you can't handle the heat, goddamn kitchen. This has been another episode presented by Ad Assistant.